Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop. It's another D7 video today. We're going to get the engine back together. It's not going to be a step-by-step because I've done that in previous videos, but it's going to be kind of a useful, I hesitate to say hints and tips because I don't want to be presumptuous, but useful areas or gotchas, if you like, things to watch out for that I've learned whilst building up this engine. And it might help you out when you come to do yours, hopefully. So that's the way we're going to do this video. Channel continues to grow, so thank you all very much indeed. New subscribers, previous subscribers alike, there'd be no point coming out and doing videos without you, so thanks very much. And yeah, it's very gratifying. I never thought the channel would get to 820, so amazing, thank you. If you're not subscribed, obviously, please feel free to press the button, ring the bell, and there's more to come, so you're more than welcome. Just before I crack on with the video, I'd just like to give a big shout out to some of my YouTube friends and colleagues. First and foremost, Michael Waller. Mike is Britannia Motorcycles. I think his channel name is Michael Waller, but he builds some of the best, if not the best, British trials bikes that certainly I've ever seen. But he's not been very well recently. He was in the hospital, but he is on the mend and back in the workshop. So if you go over and give Mike a bit of support, I would be very grateful to you. Then we've got Dale Swager, the guru, over in Montana, doing the 60s, 70s, early 80s Japanese trials bikes. Dale is the guy that, you know, we would all like to be as good as. So yeah, go and see Dale Swager if that's the kind of thing that you like. You will definitely learn something from him. My old mate Aid at AG Engineering, he has been away from the camera for a while. The day job, I know how he feels. Sometimes it's very difficult to make time to come and work on your channel when the day job is demanding. He's got a BSA aerial scrambler on the go. Hopefully we'll see some more of that soon. But he's got a fantastic back catalogue of videos in the meantime. So yeah, I appreciate it if you give Aid a bit of support as well. We've got Ian in the Shed. These are all fantastic channels, by the way. In the Shed is a great channel. He's just finishing an A50 Wasp replica BSA. Fantastic looking machine, street scrambler. Definitely our kind of thing. If you like the sort of stuff that I like, you definitely like that. And then last but definitely not least, a new, well, not a new channel, but new to me, Mr. Tweed's Garage. He's not far from me actually, he doesn't live far. He's got a Bantam, so there's a possible future video. You know, we'll get the Bantams together if we ever get them going. And yeah, he's a real amusing character. I'll say no more than that. Mr. Tweed's Garage, have a look at that. I think you'll like it. Anyway, I'll stop waffling now. Thanks for listening. I'll get on with the video. Well, what are we looking at? Things that we've looked at before, quite frankly. We're back inside this D7, as you well know from a previous video. The crank is done. I think I mentioned that as well. I got it to 2 thou, which is the sort of upper limit. BSA say no more than 2 thou. We're at, you know, 2 thou and a badger's nadger, so we'll call that good. I don't think we're going to get any better, particularly as the interference between the pin and the crank wheels isn't perfect. It's adequate, it is holding it, but yeah, I think that's why I was having issues truing it up. It's just not quite as good as it should be. So I'll probably keep my eye out for a pair of crank wheels. Failing that, it will be an oversized pin. Because you know I'm like, I know about it now, so I can't leave it alone. But I'll have to leave it alone for now. We'll get this engine back together and we'll see how it runs. I've done the end float. If you go back in my previous videos, you'll find correcting and adjusting end float on the BSA Bantam crankshaft or something like that. It's similar to that title, and you'll find out exactly how I did it. I did it in the same manner, so you'll be able to replicate what I did if you wish to. We've got the gear clusters in. I just want to make sure that everything went in and turned freely, which it does. And we're going to fit the selector mechanism. I haven't got the spring or the ball in at the moment because I just want to have a look at these tab washers that I've been sent. And these are pattern parts, and I have to say I'm not particularly impressed. Let me see if I can get you to focus. Look at that. Now I suppose if it's all done up tight and you squash the thing flat against the bolt head, it would hold. But when you compare it to the originals, which are kind of like a little receptacle that fits around the selector plate like that, nice and snugly. I don't know if you can see that. Is it focused? Right here. Yeah, not quite as good really. So I've had a route around, and I went in my Aircraft Go kit, which is my bag of tricks that if I ever have to go anywhere to fix an aircraft, I take it with me. And I found these. Let me get you in. This camera's not great at focusing, I don't think. And it tends to pulse as well, which is a bit weird. Anyway, what do I know about cameras? There we go. So these are all right. They'll do the job. They are metric, so you know, hopefully I won't be burned in effigy. But they're just a bit snugger than the other ones. So they're the ones I'm going to use anyway. I laboured that point quite a bit, didn't I? Sorry about that. They're the ones I'm going to use. So let's get it done. I'll grab the spring and the ball. We'll get some grease on, and to keep them in position, and we'll get it back together. Right, we're rolling. That was a very filmy thing to say, wasn't it? I have a little blob of grease on there just to keep the ball in. I don't know if you can see, maybe not the best angle, but yeah, I'm trying not to knock the thing off when I put this in. Right, I will rinse it out as well, give it a blast out with some solvent before we finish, because we don't want it getting all over the clutch, do we? That would be a bad day out. Right, let's get this thing in against the spring pressure. Oh, come on. There we go. My hands are in the way, aren't they? I do apologise. Let's get a bolt started. There we go. We're started. We're in the neutral position. We're in the groove. All is well with the world. Right, let's get these in decent position. Oh, all fingers and thumbs. There we go, something like that. We won't go bananas, tighten them up. There we go. That ought to do. As soon as I open a tin of grease in this place, it is everywhere. Don't know how it does it. But it does. Get that a little bit more, that'd be nice. Perfect. That'll do us. I'll finish them off with a pair of pliers. Just use this to get them going. Oop. Fell off the technical blocks of wood then. Right, let me grab some pliers and finish the job off. Okay, finish the job off with Grandad's trusty slip joint pliers, which I've had for a good few years now, since he passed away in '96. God rest him. And he had them, well, I don't know, I'm guessing from the 40s or the 50s. There you go, Gordon Tools, Sheffield, England. Last forever. So, we're locked. So, that's our gearbox back together. And we just need to put our selector shaft in, and we can put the cover back on. So we're getting there, aren't we? Okay, time to get the two crankcase halves back together. And as there's no gasket, it's a metal to metal joint, I'm going to use this stuff, jointing compound. And Well Seal is well known in the plastic bike world. Lots of people use it for the simple reason that it doesn't set. It remains sort of semi-hardened and is unlikely to block any oil wears or anything like that, which obviously there's nothing like that in a Bantam, but you might not be working on a Bantam. So yeah, that's a good product to use. Another one that I like is a Loctite 5922, which is a more modern product, but it works in a very similar way. And as usual, no affiliation. Nobody pays me to say that their stuff is good. I just I use what I find to be good and what I like to use. So I'll get a little brush if I can find one, and we'll get some Well Seal brushed onto both surfaces, both sides. We'll let it tack off for about 5 minutes, and then we will bring them together in harmony. So back in a minute. Okay, I managed to find the worst brush ever, I think, to put this stuff on with, but we've got there in the end. As you can see, it's a kind of a golden colour. It's made out of a crushed resin and a kind of a solvent solution. Sounds like a recipe, doesn't it? But yeah, it's gone a bit tacky now, so we should be good for putting the two crankcase halves together. I've squirted a bit of oil on the relevant bits and bobs just to make sure that we have smooth passage through bearings and seals and things. We've got our shims fitted to the crankshaft, make sure they're all the way down, and the casing dowels as well, mustn't forget those. So ready to put the two halves together, and hope that we haven't forgotten anything, because that would be embarrassing. So just going to come in now and bring the other casing half, just lower it gently over the seals. And just going to give it a little bit of a gentle persuasion. happy days. I'll get some screws in, and then I'll go around with a bit of methylated spirits and just wipe the excess jointing compound that's squeezed out of the joint, and we'll move on to another part of the engine. Right, all back together. All of the screws went in nicely. It's a good idea to chase out any iffy looking threads before you get the cases together, because future you will thank you for it when all the screws go in nicely. There's a hex head screw here, which is easy to forget, so top tip to remember that one. But apart from that, it's fairly straightforward. I've cleaned off all the excess, or most of the excess gasket sealant I use carburetor cleaner, but methylated spirits works just as well. Everything turns nice and freely, so we're good to go on to the next stage, which will be putting the primary side components back together. So we'll have a look at one or two salient points when I do that. Okay, I've fitted the primary sprocket now. That's been done up tight, lock tab done. You must remember, of course, to refit the key. I use this tool here to, can you see it? There we go. I use this tool to lock the sprocket and to lock the crankshaft while I tighten it up. But this also does the clutch center. But you don't have to have one of these. You could make a tool from an old primary chain, or indeed you could put, if you were very careful, of course, you could put a rod through the small end and do it that way, as long as you're careful not to damage the small end bearing. But as long as you're careful, you can get away with it. So I'm going to grab the bits for the clutch now, and we're going to have a look at how the clutch goes together. Right, here's something I wanted to show you. I've just assembled the Kickstarter ratchet mechanism, and as you can see, it works fine. And I've had to put a new spring cup on because it wouldn't hold. There's a little snap ring or circlip in there. You might just be able to make it out with a screwdriver pointing at it, that holds the spring. So the spring goes on, then the spring cup, and then the snap ring. And let me show you the old one that came off, because you'll be able to recognize what's wrong with it. You can see that it's just basically a plain hole in there now. But what there should be is a separate little ledge all the way around here. But as the spring pressure pops it up, it catches on the circlip, and the circlip sits in that little recess. And when they get like this and they get worn out, and that piece of metal basically wears away, it just pops off the end, and then your Kickstarter ratchet spring ends up just rubbing against the bearing, and you can get sticky Kickstarters, mystery noises from inside the casing, and one or two people say that it can make your clutch drag, which I'm not entirely sure if that's true, but I can see that extra little bit of resistance could possibly affect the operation of the clutch. But I think largely it affects your Kickstarter mechanism, and you've got this spring rubbing against the bearing, which is far from ideal. So you need to make sure that this is in good condition. And also, if you're potentially building an engine that's been apart for a while, you need to check the condition of the circlip groove. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice a little bit. The circlip groove, because you can get corrosion and you can get lost material, and then the circlip will no longer stay in its groove and it just keeps popping off, which can be a problem. But that's something to check when you're putting your engine back together before you put your clutch in. So let me grab the engine and we'll put the clutch back together. Okay, we're going to do the clutch and the Kickstarter, and here's the Kickstarter ratchet, and that's the way it should look, with this little boss here pointing inwards. And Bones tells me that sometimes when you buy these assemblies brand new, they're imported. I don't know where they're made, but they come with this bit the wrong way around, which is a bit unusual, because it would never work, because that's that boss there engages with the spring, and that goes in there like that. and when it's all set up, it sits like that, and when you press the Kickstarter pedal, it comes up, it engages with the sprocket on the back of the clutch, turns the engine over, and then it returns. So, you know, you'd have nothing to engage with the spring if that was the other way around. So that's something to check if you buy a new one, I suppose. But anyway, let's get it put together and figure out how it goes. So the spring sits like that. You've got that little slot there, and you've got that little eye end that stops the spring from popping out. So that's the way your spring wants to be. But before that can go on, you've got this little disc that prevents the whole thing from wearing its way through the casing. So we need that piece on. So this is how I do it. It goes on like that. That's the way it's going to go. The spring's got to be like that. So that can only really engage in one of the little dogs on the back. So you can see that is there. So let me just let you digest that bit of information. Then we've got our protective disc, and then the whole thing slides onto the shaft. Hold it all together so the spring doesn't pop out. Make sure the eye end goes in there, and then push it all home. So that's in the start position. So we need to put some tension on it. So I just gently ease the spring past this piece of the casting here. Ease the ratchet rather, past this piece of the casting. We're winding the spring up as we go. I'm going to go all the way around. You can see that we're winding the spring up all the way around here, and then we're in. And then your end of your ratchet sits against this stop here, and this stop is subject to wear. I've seen this worn. One of my viewers actually contacted me because his was worn. He was having problems with his Kickstarter. We had a look over email, and his casting was worn away here, so he's got to rebuild all that back up again. And what happens is the Kickstarter just starts creeping, and eventually it gets stuck. You press your Kickstarter and you can feel it basically rubbing against here and not working properly. So that's another one to look for, any damage here. And then make sure that it returns all right, nice and smartly, which it does. And that's our Kickstarter done. We can fit the clutch now, because had we fitted the clutch to start with, we'd have been, let me show you, we'd have been struggling. Let's just put that on there for now. Refit the clutch drum, there you go. It kind of gets in the way. So that's the way you've got to do it. So we'll be careful not to dislodge that, because we don't want it flying around, but there's not that much tension in those springs really. It's one of the easier ones to do. So we'll have a look at the clutch now. Let me just move the camera. Right, we'll fit our clutch, and a couple of little pointers that I'd like to bring your attention to when you're doing the clutch, which might help you out. So we'll go through that now. The first thing that you fit is the top hat bush on these 3-speed models. They don't have a top hat bush on the 4-speed models. So that goes on, and if you look back through my videos, you'll see where I made that bush on the lathe. You can buy them, you don't have to make them yourself. I did decide to make it because, one, it was quite a good exercise to do, and two, I wasn't entirely sure if there was any wear in the clutch bore, so I just made it to fit the clutch bore, just to make sure that I took up any wear. But you can buy them from your aftermarket pattern part people, and I don't think they're in short supply or anything like that. You should be able to get hold of them. So next thing to fit is the clutch drum itself, and then check that your main shaft will revolve independently and without hindrance from your clutch drum, because that's really important. If you if you have friction here, you're likely to get clutch drag later down the line, and you don't want that. Next is the thrust washer, and again, I made this rather, but you can buy them; they are available. Top tip if you buy a pattern one is to make sure that it is flat, and if it isn't, you're going to get problems because you will get high spots, and that will give you clutch drag. There's a pattern here, isn't there? Everything gives you clutch drag. So yeah, top tip with these things is just to rub them on some emery paper on a sheet of glass or surface plate if you've got one. Don't go bananas though, because the thickness is important, and we'll come on to that next. It is definitely a test and adjust type thing, but you do want them to be flat on both surfaces. So that goes on there. Just put a little bit of oil on the splines, and then our clutch center goes on. And make sure that the thrust washer drops in. There we go, and that the center goes all the way in. And you can see that the center revolves independently of the clutch drum, and that is a phenomenon that we want to keep, and that's where the thickness of the thrust washer comes in. So I fitted the shake-proof washer. We'll fit the nut if I've got the right one. Yep, I have. And then where's my socket gone? There it is. 7/16 Whitworth. This one fits. You can see the mark around there. This one just fits. Anything thicker than this, and you probably have to do a bit of a grind down job or a turn down in the lathe, because it's quite a close fit in there. If you're wondering what's happened to my voice, I had some dental surgery a few days ago, and it's caused me a few problems. I think I may have an infection. My head feels like an overinflated football, and my voice is a bit croaky. So bear with me. We'll soldier on. Right, this is where our special tool comes back in. The tool that I use to tighten up the sprocket, and it also does your clutch center, and fits through slots in the clutch drum, and then we can get in there and we can tighten this up. Bear with me, I'm in the way, I know. Okay, right. Now, if we've done this right, that will still freely revolve without hindrance, as will the clutch drum, and we should have barely perceptible end float, which we have. And the reason that we need that is because if this clutch drum can move freely in and out, and it's got lots of play on it, when you pull your clutch lever, rather than separate your plates, you'll have to take up that movement before you get any movement in your plates. And what does that cause? Yeah, you guessed it, clutch drag. So that's the importance of your thrust washer, making sure that it spins freely, but it's not so slim that it allows this to move in and out. So that's the balancing act. Right. Next thing I'm going to do, because this is the thing that I forget to do, and now's a good time to do it, whack a little bit of oil in there and pop your push rod mushroom in, because you feel like a proper Charlie when you build the clutch up and find that on the bench. And I've done it on camera as well, so there you go. I'm going to build the clutch back up, and if there's anything that I think is pertinent to tell you, I'll switch the camera back on and we'll have a look at it. I thought of one more thing I'd like to show you before I box up the clutch, and that is a common bit of damage that you often see on the outer cover. So here is the outer cover. It's quite an important piece because it doubles up as the final driving plate as well as the cover. And in here you can see some spot welds. This is an extra plate that's welded in to beef up the cover, because this is where the push rod bears against when you lift the clutch. So you can see a little witness mark in there where the mushroom has been running. Now if I flip this over, you can see some marks, some dents and indentations in the clutch cover. Now if you think about this thing sitting in there like that, these marks are the result of someone's ill-conceived notion that pressing on here will compress the clutch. And of course it won't, because this plate is under the influence of the springs. So pressing on here isn't going to release the pressure on the springs. You need to press on this bit. So the springs are sandwiched between the little cups between this piece and the cover. And so when you compress this piece, press it flat almost against there, it compresses the springs and you can remove the big circlet that goes around the outside. You press on here, it doesn't make any difference at all. But it's quite a common thing. And our good friend Mr. Bones over in Australia tells me that he's actually seen them where they've been pressed on sort of so often or so hard that it's actually fractured the welds, and this plate is running loose inside. So there's something to look out for, another bit of a tip really. Make sure that these welds are in good condition and that this plate isn't about to break free, because that would cause you some problems. And when you compress your clutch, make sure that you're bearing on this surface just outside of this diameter here, and not on the cover. So there we go. I'll flip the engine over in a minute and we'll get the springs fitted. This is my rig for compressing the clutch springs. It's just a universal puller made up into two-leg format, and we've got a piece of tubing which is turned down here at the base so that it fits inside the clutch spring cups, and it fits over the raised portion on the spring plate. Then we've got a piece of flat aluminium plate with a hole drilled in it to take the nib of the forcing screw, and just use that to push the plate down, compress the springs. And you can get the proper tool for doing this, or it's actually a copy of the original BSA tool. But you know, if you've got enough tack lying around like I do, you don't really need to. So you can make something that does the job. But yeah, the special tools are available. So I'm just going to push the circlip in now and just get it. Just going to get it into a place where the open end of the circlip, or the two free ends, are in a closed section of the clutch, i.e. they don't sit in one of these gaps. So I'm just going to work it in. Put that one there. There we go. Just make sure that it's properly in the slot, clicked in all the way around, because if the circlip isn't in properly, you will struggle to get the top cover on. And if you're doing a much earlier Bantam, you won't have a top cover. And by top cover I mean this piece. This was a modification that BSA brought out because they found that the clutch drum was expanding, so they brought this out to tie it all together. But yeah, if your circlip isn't in properly, not engaged in the slots, you sometimes find that it forces it forces these fingers outwards and you can't get the cover on. But I think that's in, so I think we can remove the compressor. Oh, what I didn't mention, if you're rebuilding your engine and you don't know the provenance of your springs, your clutch springs, it's a very wise policy to replace them. They're not very expensive, they're readily available, and they do take quite a beating. And the standard Bantam clutch struggles at the best of times, really, to transmit the awesome power of the Bantam engine. So changing the springs gives it a fighting chance. So it's a good policy to do that. And we'll just relax the pressure now. And hopefully it won't come flying apart if we've done it properly. Get that out of the way. Take all these little bits off. There we go. There's our clutch, and you can see those marks in the middle there. It does make me wonder why they seem to end up with these things, because it's clear that this is where you need to press to compress. Wow, this is where you need to press to get a result on the clutch springs. But there you go. Things happen, don't they? So I'm going to put the cover back on, and we can put the gasket on, put the clutch cover on. That side of the bike is done. That side of the engine, rather. There we go then, that's us done. That's our primary chain fitted. And again, if you don't know the provenance of your chain, or it's been a while since it was changed, or indeed there's a lot of slacking in it, it's well worth fitting a new one for what they cost. There's the split link there, and you can see it's heading in the direction that the engine turns. So that's another one to remember. Right, I'll get the cover on, and we'll move. Here's something else you might find useful when you're doing your timing. These little miniature DTI mag stands. They're fully adjustable, and they're really quite small, so you can get them on the barrel here, but very dexterous, so you can get a full-size DTI wherever you want it, really. And I've got it right in the middle of the piston, so it's really easy when you're finding top dead center. You get a really nice indication of where that perfect spot is, and then when you back up to do your timing, you get an accurate reading to whatever your particular application is. So as I say, quite cheap. You get them from the usual suspects, you know, your online tool places and those people that deliver overnight, you know, the ones I mean. But quite a handy addition. And you'll just notice back there, let me move the camera ever so slightly. You can see that I've got a little turned aluminium spacer that I made just to save mark in the mating surface. And then I've got a cylinder head nut just to stop the barrel from moving while we're winding the piston up and down. Just holds everything in place. It just makes doing your timing that little bit easier. So hopefully that'll be useful for you.